Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And Jacob Gulliver.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we find ourselves in the midst of Disney's big venture into the world of streaming, having started a war in the process, we thought it'd be nice to stay up to date on the ever-growing catalog and rule on what's a must or a bust on Disney Plus. And oh my god, is that Captain Marvel actually having a personality in the last literal 30 seconds of this show? That's right, folks. We're talking Miss Marvel episode 6 entitled No Normal. So Jacob, I'm going to throw it to you first. What are your thoughts on Miss Marvel just as a whole, and how do you feel this episode rounded things out?
I've been enjoying it, to be honest. I really have been surprised by what they're doing, and in a good way. I think it's very different from what I imagined, just because the original comic was so much more like grounded in the trends of that specific era in which it was released, and very much so more connected to a ton of different specific Marvel characters that they kind of brought to the forefront for a little while during that time. But what they've done with it is they've taken that same character and they've made it this really interesting story, ultimately about, 4 generations of immigrants and their struggles, how, each generation has the elements from before, but also they want to be something different, and how those connect. And then there's a little bit of lovely superhero Marvel action thrown in there. So it really wasn't what I expected based on the comic, but I've been pleasantly surprised, and I've really been enjoying it. I think the last episode was for sure their best episode.
Yeah, I've been on for about half of these. I've been dealing with other stuff, so Jacob Weil and others have been taking the lead in my absence. But I have actually been really, really enjoying this show as well. Like way more than I thought I would. And to tell you the truth, I don't want to go on a whole political thing here. Like, if it's just not your thing as far as like the tone goes, or if because I feel like this does cater to the youngest demographic that the MCU's ever catered to. I know a friend who is a little bit put off by the show just based on that. He basically says, like, it's just MCU Degrassi. And I'm like, yeah, I can't really argue with you. That is kind of what it is. Frankly, I'm really, 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 really frustrated at anyone who's like, oh, Miss Marvel's woke and that's why it's failing. I'm like, no, you're just fucking stupid and racist.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, I honestly think I think this show came together really well. I was gone last week, but episode 5 certainly was. I think probably episode 5 for me was probably the best episode as far as tying everything together. It was cool to see the historical side of things. It was cool to get her perspective on that event. This episode, I will be honest with you, for me personally, like, I do think it has a lot of good superhero stuff, but as Dragon knows, I'm a little bit averse to the fight. And so because of that, like, I think I do think it ends on some high notes, like as far as the themes go, but the action in this episode, I don't know, it's okay, it's decent. I do like the kind of Sam Raimi style, like the whole town sort of gathers behind the, gathers in front of the hero to protect them. Like, I like all that. I just think maybe the action kind of maybe dragged a little bit in some spots, but it's a nitpick. And Dragon, we got our boy back in the action, literally.
We worked him in very nicely too.
Yeah. There was way more saga in this episode than I thought there'd be.
He had a great re-entrance into things, I felt.
Totally. All right, so Dragon, how are you feeling about this one?
Yes, I mean, on the whole, yeah, I've been really feeling. I'm really feeling Miss Marvel, but I did have a bit of a hiccup in the middle that basically it's been kind of trying to shake off here and there. And I think, I think all that's kind of cleared up by the last episode. Unfortunately, let me this way. The Disney Plus MCU shows, there has been a pattern that we have kind of talked about.
Oh, yes.
Now, I think this, for the most part, I think it breaks the pattern in a good way, which is kind of what you want. Like this and Hawkeye have kind of been the exceptions to that pattern, but even so, Hawkeye people, everyone's gonna have an opinion on something. So I think on the whole, people are probably more united in terms of we like the Hawkeye ending. Point being, I think this finale, I think it hit the right notes. Kamran didn't tank the thing like I feared he was going to. Not that I disliked Kamran. I just feared like, oh god, she's going to possess his body or something, the mother, and it's going to be a forced fight between friends. And we didn't quite do that, and that's what I was hoping for. And it turned out well. And basically the thing I wanted from the beginning more of that we again the biggest problem I have with the show, the only one of the few. Honestly, like the really only problem I have with the show is that I love the slice of life angle, and I love like kind of learning about kind of the southeast the southeastern community, and we then basically we kind of have like a random villain plot thrown in there because we need her to punch something, and then it's just kind of like don't get me wrong, episode 5 is great and filled with pathos and backstory, which I think really saved that and did make it quite the standout, but it's like this villain plot doesn't track at all for me. We want to get home, and so we can wipe out everything. Like, really? it's like, hey, listen, I want to help you guys get home, but I need to wait after my brother's wedding. We can't wait. We're gonna crash the wedding. It's like none of this really. That's so. Those have been the story problems I've had with it. When I was hoping that we got in this episode, but I feel maybe a little saved for last more than it should have been. Damage control in an antagonistic light. Put against Miss Marvel. That I really found interesting, and again, that's kind of what I was hoping the show was going to build to, given they were introduced at like the end of the first episode. And
sorry,
right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Anyway, yes, I don't know. It just feels like damage control. I wish was like a little more kind of a central figure versus our rando bad guys. Kind of our bargain bin Eternals that we did have. But I adored her being fully realized. I mean, I saw a little bit of her teased, like in the Disney Cruise video they put out, and she was amazing there. But really, I got to tell you, seeing it with the polish and everything, and the Miss Marvel kind of like, this is her finally just kind of going around doing her thing, full costume. Like we finally made it; it was earned, and we built her piece by piece. You saw it happen. It was great. I really had a good time with the finale, and all of our lovely supporting characters got moments to shine. It all came together quite nicely.
Do you guys mind if I step out for just a few minutes? I do kind of need to take this phone call really quick.
Color me surprised. Go on.
I'm sorry, Dragon. At least I'm here.
I'll get.
Yeah, for a change.
All right. Old married couple here.
Right, so where do you want to start, Gulliver?
I would agree that as a whole, the Jinn are probably the weakest plot element as part of the show overall. And it's tough because I really feel like they're teasing or setting something up that we're just not getting the payoff for yet. And there probably wasn't time to tell a more complex story with all the different, characterizations happening and the sort of like family history that's getting unveiled there. But I think the time that they did spend on like the history of Kamala's family and like the process of like how cultures change over time as you move and integrate, all of that stuff really just like hit strong for me.
Yeah,
so I wasn't as bothered by by it. It's just like, maybe these guys aren't as cool or as interesting as some of the other MCU baddies, but like I get it. Like that makes sense.
I mean, that's the thing, Gulliver. I love the payoff of all that, what it gets us with Kamala's character, but the getting there is the bumpy part.
Yeah. I really love that they included Red Dagger. I am excited about that, and I didn't know Aramis Knight was going to be in it, which is weird because I usually like see castings and stuff beforehand. But I truly love Aramis Knight. I was such a huge fan of his from Into the Badlands. Which I don't know if you've seen, but check it out if you haven't.
So you're referring to the actor who plays Red Dagger, then?
Yes, Aramis Knight.
So that's the thing. Tell me, can you loop me in a little bit about Red Dagger? So is Red Dagger just like a one specific hero, and here they made it kind of more of a collective, or was it always like that in the comic? Do you know?
I believe it was always like a collective, but I'm only familiar with Red Dagger from the Miss Marvel comics. And he doesn't show up until much later in like the continuity. He's not anywhere near the beginning.
Gotcha.
but I believe it is like an organization or a title rather than an individual person.
See, I mean, honestly, the one thing that unfortunately we can't get out of with this pattern of Disney Plus MCU shows is, again, I don't think it hurts. Well, I don't know. I can't really say it doesn't hurt it as much as the other shows, but it's sort of like that whole we're going to give you 6 hours. In reality, far less than 6 hours, and in doing so, it's like we kind of fast forward a few things, like our training. And
Mhm.
like again, I understand it was more of a fundamental, like they were kind of like telling you got to think a little differently, and that'll help your constructs. Essentially, is what they said. But
Mhm.
and we kind of looped around a little bit about the world, which then really helped her majorly once
Yep.
once we got to the next. That's what I'm saying. We kind of had more of a fundamental thing, but it really seemed like time was passing, and I
Mhm.
don't know, our passage of time and how much time we could fit in things. And I think that's what really undercut the gin, because it was like one episode of like, okay, I kind of, I can understand these guys aren't really bad guys at all initially, I'm thinking. And then like it was
Mhm.
randomly made the turn, and all because of like, well, they're introduced as very important, like a left turn in our story when really taking our time with things. Like, okay, now the action's happening. We gotta put pedal to the metal. It's like, wait, what? No, I was having a nice leisurely time. What is happening?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. And,
So I mean, the pacing's like the one really bad. I mean, the pacing and the gin, mainly because of the pacing, would probably be my gripe with the show.
sure.
Yeah.
My fellow Super Academy collaborator Ben Lifson
Ooh.
will often say things. Will often quote George Lucas as saying, "Oh, it's like poetry; they rhyme."
Or in this case,
You
faster and more intense.
Yeah. So there's definitely some moments that made me think of Ben doing that silly impression all those years ago. But like, there's so many things that are sort of rhyming with the comic where they reinterpret it a little bit differently, and I think the whole aspect with Kamran. I don't know if you read the comics or not, but like Kamran is an Inhuman who's part of like a subsect in the comics that's trying to overthrow Medusa and like the ruling folks there. But like the introduction with like he's so attractive and like he's got this cool car and stuff. All of those things are like that have rhyming moments in the comics, similar, and there's the thing about like Zoe being saved, except it's when she's drunk at a party and falls in a lake or whatever in the
Right.
comic. So like there's all those little moments that are similar.
Basically, we're kind of reworking
Yeah.
that there is a party and there's someone who kind of does a jump, but it's not really
Yep.
Zoe, and like, but we did have her get saved in kind of a more wholesome way earlier. So it's
Hmm.
kind of like, basically we're kind of sprinkling around a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you, it does make me really wonder, because again, I think the most interesting hurdle this show had in terms of the reinterpretation of this character. Now, mind you, I know very little about. I knew very little about Miss Marvel, except like pretty much like a little bit of like kind of like the core like cell of Miss Marvel. Honestly, only this.
Hmm.
The most I knew about Miss Marvel was from the Avengers game they put out, the Marvel's Avengers game,
Okay.
which essentially is your POV character. That was my
Yep.
introduction to her, and maybe like a little sprinkling here and there from the comics, but very sparsely on the comic side of things. One being, I really liked what I saw of her in that game, and I liked tailoring her as like the fangirl going
Yeah.
in, which made me love even more so. Like, oh my god, Avengers Con is kind of like Avengers Day in the game. How
Yep.
lovely!
Yep.
This is a really good introduction. So with that, the minimum that I got with Miss Marvel is obviously a little reinterpreted for the game, but on the whole, it's the Terrigen Mist and Humans thing. That's usually where we get our powers from and all that
Hmm.
sort of stuff. Now, this show obviously took a very different tact with it, made it more kind of like a light construct Green Lantern thing as a way of getting us like that thing, mainly because we're playing scared with two things. Fantastic Four with the stretching abilities, which we want to kind of like save all the shock and awe for when we do Mr. Fantastic in a full movie versus a scene.
Yep.
And beyond that, let's see. There's again with the Inhuman side of things, because we're playing scared with the Inhumans. Like, okay, let's give folks one Inhuman that they're really gonna like, and then we'll just because we kind of screwed the pooch a little bit back when we didn't make it a
Yeah.
full movie or give it the proper
No
budget.
pun intended, Lockjaw.
Yeah. But that's the thing. That's the thing. It makes me wonder, like almost like a multiversal situation here. Had we had the Inhumans to play with, I wonder if we could have done stuff like you
Yeah.
mentioned, which we could have had like a Medusa in the fray and such, and the Terrigen
Yep.
Mist, which again we did have
Yep.
like a whole season and change of Agents of Shield with the Terrigen Mist. I don't know.
Right, but also like Kamala's first like major enemy in the comics is the Inventor,
Yeah.
who is like a half bird, half robot clone of Thomas Edison for some
So,
reason.
sir, that's
Just
like
like
I was
delightful,
afraid,
whimsical, and fun, but like they're not gonna do that for the show.
especially
Like,
after we've done kind of our grounded bird guy in a Spider-Man movie. I don't think we're
right.
gonna be able to do like
Yep.
kind of
Yep.
another. But that's the thing. So I was going into the show wondering like after the first episode, man, I'm loving the slice of life thing. I wonder what the heck we're gonna do about about our bad guys because I'm not familiar with her rogues gallery, and I imagine we would play. My logic was okay, damage control. That's a good idea. Maybe some like like thugs and like bank robbers and stuff. And my pitch anytime we need a small scale MCU villain, by the way, always the Wrecking Crew.
Mm,
Never
yeah.
fails. Perfect like low tier villain
Yeah.
because they're cool, they're a group, and they can always come back.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I guess focusing more on the episode at hand.
Yeah.
So let's see. So we loop. Okay, so we start the episode off. We loop Amir and Abu in a really fun way. I love that. Of course, Jay, I've been feeling about the family with Amir and Abu and such.
I like the family. I think they portray that really good balance of being like very concerned but also very supportive, which I think is true of, almost everybody has somebody like that in their family where like they want you to be really careful and like, anytime you tell them about something they're like, "Oh, be careful with that. That sounds dangerous," or like, but also, when you show some degree of success or when you have something that you're proud of, then they're excited about that too and they're very supportive. So that sort of balance felt very human, felt very real, and really kind of endeared me to the family as a whole. Of course they have their arguments, but what family doesn't?
Yeah, but they also have like their real moments. Like I love that whole
Hmm.
like that money thing and
Yep, yep.
during the during the wedding where but aside from the comedy, obviously the comedic bit was perfect. But I'm saying even up to that, just the whole like the thing about you choosing like to live in fear of not having enough money or basically spending all this for your wife for love.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I love that they're once they're looped in and everything, they're proud and supportive, and we have just I love the whole speaker problem gag about like how everyone gets looped in, and then kind of like the word travels fast. Well, Abu has speaker on all the time. That's how we
Yep.
know. Speaker's very useful.
Yeah, it's very convenient.
I love me some Abu, and again, I went in with a built-in love for that guy because again, he too was in the Avengers Day thing and during the Marvel game with Miss Marvel in it. Anyway, I love Amir like taking pot shots there. So, did you drop the kid on purpose? Like, was that part of the plan, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's like we have just a fun. It's kind of a thing that we now have a little more commonplace in the MCU, but we usually don't. Ever since the launch of like, okay, we're not really going to do the secret identity thing. So, with the exception of Spider-Man and well, technically Daredevil, but mainly on the big screen, Spider-Man. We have like that was the only secret identity moment we had where Aunt May got looped in. Then we kind of sidestepped over that. But the point
Yeah.
being, it's interesting to see just kind of like appreciate a moment of okay, they've been looped in, they're really cool about it, which so rarely we get historically with the secret identity story. Usually there's like a whole like
Mhm.
I don't know if I can approve this or you're not doing this, and
Yeah.
okay, we'll kind of do this, but only after something bad happens.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
like all the high school sort of stuff, like if to kind of revisit the point Tiki was making earlier with like people downing on that, like, did you not watch Spider-Man? Like any of the Spider-Man movies? Like high school drama is a thing already in the MCU. So like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I got a little bit, I got heated the way that Tiki did about it. Just like, come on, guys.
Right. Well, yeah, she's a high school student. It's gonna,
Yeah.
we gotta broach
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. She's a teen hero. Teen heroes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, so speaking of teen stuff, yeah, Bruno and Conrad who become besties, and I like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I will admit though, it does feel a few things that don't track, and these are like small nitpicks, but again, because of the speed bump I had in the middle, they kind of like stood out to me. All the little kind of cracks in the armor. In this case, like a little bit of like, I do not remember his apartment getting blown up. I thought I saw like a drone out there. I don't think the drone would necessarily blow him up. I don't know about that. So maybe there was like a blast through like a window, but I don't remember like a whole place getting
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a bit of a stretch. And I don't know if my guess is that maybe again off screen though, maybe Cameron threw a blast or something. But it's anyway. So let's see. Anyway, the point being, like, I don't know if Kamran had like a big explosion or not, but that would maybe explain how things. Again, it's like we had stuff that happened off screen, was kind of in the midst of the action. And Kamran's still playing hurt, so I don't know. It's odd. All right, let's see. I'm sorry, I was trying to refocus here. Anyway, yeah, so the circle Q, which, you know what's hilarious? Kevin Smith, he's waited on the show, and he's very jealous that why didn't they use the quick stop? You know, he would have loved to have a cameo as the as the convenience store clerk or something, or as Bruno's boss. I thought that was delightful hearing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's see. So, let's talk about how reckless Agent Deaver is, man. She's terrible.
Yeah. Just really over the top, but I was enjoying it. It's good to have a villain that you love to hate.
I mean, yeah, albeit a villain we only have like 2-3 scenes with, but yes, you know, she is. She's again. I got a sense on that lady when she first said, "Man, I'm not gonna like this lady." It's like there's no gray on this lady and what she's doing. She's a mean lady.
Yeah. I think it was interesting seeing her like disobey the order. Gosh, I'm trying to remember the other guy's name. The one
Yeah, I
who's
think it's It's Cleary. I think it's Agent
Cleary.
Cleary.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, is from Succession.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, he's a
didn't know
Stewie
that.
from Succession, bearded guy. Does he remind you of Mark Ruffalo at all? This guy, how he sounds and everything. Do you get any of that?
Not really.
Might just be okay. That might, but just be me. All right, that's fine. Right. Anyway, yeah, let's see. But yes, that's the thing. So Deaver is very dead set on like getting our powered individuals at all costs, and we're definitely drawing some parallels to kind of some X-Men stuff for sure.
Yeah. And when of course with Bruno kind of saying like, oh, I discovered something new with your DNA, and kind of teasing that out a little bit.
Yeah, let's jump to that because that's really big. And people are definitely talking about it. So yes, I read somewhere. I didn't give it like a really good cursory thing to make full sense of it here, but it sounds like they did an interview with the creator of Miss Marvel, who I believe actually they named the grandmother after. It was kind of a tribute. It's Sana something. Anyway, so she mentioned, I believe, that originally in the comics they talked about what are we going to make Kamala for her backstory for how she has her powers, and before they landed on Inhumans or the Terrigen Mist of it all, there were talks about making her a mutant, and it kind of fell by the wayside. That's at least what I understood from the article that I read, and I find it really interesting that we're everyone's freaking out about it because we've name dropped mutants outside of a certain cameo or a certain film.
Yeah.
So this is pretty big, and I'll admit I think it's it's a little bit of like a little too soon bit. It's cool though, and it's like something that didn't get in the way of the story. It just feels like okay, so I'm not bothered that we made her a mutant or anything. It just feels like okay, so we're making a really big ceremony out of first mutant. A mutation has occurred, folks. Oh. It's honestly here it's less the fact she's a mutant. I think it's all that's interesting. It's not really a huge difference because basically Inhumans are space mutants, so that's all cool and fine and dandy. What I'm concerned about, and I have to kind of wait and see how it goes, is the MRD of it all, like the like kind of the basically it seems like we might be making damage control into the kind of the mutant response division, or basically kind of like the basically kind of our potential kind of like group going after the mutants and everything because they're a danger and menace to society and the bigotry and so on and so forth. Now that makes me wonder, do you think because it seems like Sword would be better suited for that with the whole living weapon thing and damage control? I mean, it kind of makes sense, but it feels like it's like one of these things we always knew was going to happen whenever we looped in the mutants, which we still haven't done in a major sense quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
So let me see. I'm sorry. In a major sense, quite yet, and it basically feels like we're. Sorry, I was just a little distracted. I'm sorry. Basically, what I'm getting at is that we have we always knew at some point the mutants are going to be looped in, and it's a question of how much of it's going to be they were here the whole time and we just didn't talk about them, or is it going to be like we've now changed our status quo and now we're building it from a ground zero of sorts? And it feels like we're kind of leaning into the latter with, okay, where mutants are popping up now, we're basically working into institutions that we can have that weren't just specifically designed for mutants with like a namesake that would reflect that. And did you have any thoughts on that? Or
I'm wondering if maybe like they kind of connect damage control or sword to like eventual like sentinels or like other mutant hunting tools later on.
I mean,
That
it
could be
would
kind of
track.
interesting, and like I feel like they'll keep some of sword for um secret invasion or like um gosh, what's the other, or like the Marvels, the movie that they're doing. I feel like
Right.
we'll get more of them there, but it's possible that we see a little bit of them somewhere else too. It's all speculation, of course, but yeah, I'm definitely curious to see how they're developing those characters, what they're gonna do with damage control beyond Miss Marvel.
Yeah, that's the thing because it really intrigues me because I'm kind of open to the possibility, but like kind of like the stubborn fan in me is kind of like, no, it has to be the MRD. It's got to be that's how we can have them be the mustache twirlers and everything and the Sentinels and all that.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right though, Gulliver, in that there is a logic to it. My favorite thing about damage control, I mean, ever since the beginning, was they repurpose and kind of salvage, the tech, like all the tech and Easter eggs in the MCU. In this show, they've repurposed it, like assumedly
Hmm.
the Tony Stark drone, the Stark Enterprises, Stark
Yeah.
Industry drones, and particularly here we have the sonic cannon weapons that were designed by Stark Industries as well that we use as like offensive weapons, which is an awesome idea to me. And I was geeking out so much being the gadget
Yeah.
nut that I am, like, oh, I know it's exactly like the little Sonic that we used on the Hulk. It's awesome. So, by that logic, a Sentinel makes all the sense in the world if made from repurposed tech or something like an Ultron program on a massive scale, or probably something of a better analogy or something we may have at our disposal elsewhere. But yeah, it would make sense, but it's kind of funny that I mean I don't necessarily see, even though it would make more sense with Sword, it feels like damage control. I don't know because we have a guy who's like reining her in, so it seems like we're not going to get out of control. But we did have people in there that were very much against powered people. By the same token, Sword was all about the living weapon. That was run by one really kind of duplicitous guy at the top, though, with Hayward, who was not necessarily wrong, but he went about things in a real shady, icky way that became bad
Hmm.
and became wrong.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's kind of like a weird blending of those two. Of like if one were to just become full on kind of our fill in for the MRD because they both kind of have like a toe in it, but they're not really taking the plunge. So well,
Right.
it's a wait and see game. So maybe they'll take that route. Maybe they won't.
Yeah.
Not sure.
Yeah. They've pretty much kept all of the like future of X-Men and mutants as a whole in the dark thus far. I feel like they kind of ended up with Fox unexpectedly almost.
Oh,
Like they
absolutely.
already had a ton of plans laid out, and then they were like, "Oh snap, we didn't think this was going to go through, but okay, let's see how are we going to work this in." But I think they're also like taking their time because they want to separate people's conceptions of the Fox verse X-Men from the Marvel ones in some ways. With one big notable exception, of course, in recent days. I won't spoil it, but
Right.
you know. Anywho,
Yes. So anyway, the point being, this episode just get some other stuff here. Again, like Bruno and Cameron, they're running around. One of my favorite elements of the show too is I love like exploring the culture. I love like going to the mosque, and I love
mhm.
Sheikh Abdullah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
he's
was a
very
great
much
character.
like the comic where he's strict, but he's so like sweet and like friendly. It's just this great blend of like being very, very specific about everything and like really dedicated to his task, but also just being this really bubbly, fun guy who's very supportive as well.
Yeah, I love how he gave kind of like the Uncle Ben moment, like kind of like the great
Yeah.
power, great responsibility, kind of like ish
Hmm.
line a few episodes back, which really struck a chord, and I think kind of lined up with some kind of a variation. Basically, I was fascinated by we kind of looped in great power, great responsibility with kind of almost like a Pakistani
Hmm.
kind of worldview. The whole like good
Right.
good thoughts, good deeds, kind of applied to great power, in which it's like people. It's like people aren't good, like deeds are good, or something along those lines.
Yep. Absolutely. And that is a line from the comic as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's another bit that he says where, like, after she's been sneaking out, then, they want her to go talk with him. And he says something like, well, if you won't tell me what you're doing, that's okay. But then, I would ask that whatever you're doing, do it with dignity, do it with grace, do it with self-respect, and do it, for not just yourself, do it for those around you. Which I thought, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, I don't remember the exact line, but I thought that was a really cool way to think about it and a very nice interpretation.
He did have a real good nugget of wisdom here too that really did apply to our third act as well. Here, where
Mm-hmm.
he said to Kamran, "Remember, just because someone treats you as an enemy doesn't give you the right to treat them as yours." That's an excellent line. I really like. Man, that is good writing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the MVP in the room for me on this episode, man. I love the fully realized Miss Marvel. I do kind of call a little bit of BS on that costume was ready way too fast.
Yeah, and very professional. But then again, I mean, we've had several Spider-Man movies where he made it himself. Not the MCU one, but
Right.
we've had several.
Well, he
Spider-Mans where
eventually
made
it himself.
Really?
But, it took a while.
Yeah.
But regardless, no, honestly, no, it's not so much that it was like how well it was made, because we saw the pieces of it like on the way of being made, but it was like literally we just got back from our trip and it's ready. Because she just said, "Well, I had time to make this." Dude did not have time to make that.
Yeah, I would have, and our housemate said something that I thought was really funny. It was like it would have been great if there was an extra scene where like she says she made it, and then there was a quick cutaway to her like berating a professional, seamstress or something. Just like, no, it has to be just like this. And
that's awesome.
Yes, I made it. That. I definitely made it.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Anyway, it seems like a Deadpool gag too.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, but yeah, that's the thing. So I gotta tell you, man, I love the energy. I love everything. It was like her running through the sky, like her equivalent to Spider-Man swinging through New York. Is like she's running through the sky. We have kind of the poppy music playing, and you're stopping at the light, tapping the foot. That's like, yes, I love this character. Yes.
Yeah. Also, definitely gave me kind of Miles Morales sort of vibes too.
Yeah.
It's just like feeling yourself, feeling your vibe, feeling your city around you, and using your powers in a mundane and refreshing way.
Again, it's like the slice of life's kind of Spider-Man quality that is kind of conveyed there. And again, she's the Spider-Man for New Jersey. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which, by the way, did it occur to you at any point while you're watching this that, oh yeah, we're in New Jersey, which some really rather big stuff happened there recently.
Yeah.
With WandaVision.
Yep.
Anyway, so yes, of course, we later on we see her power usage in effect, and she's expanding in size with the big limbs, flashing the peace sign and everything, which is look great. And she's catching like giant cars and everything, and saving people. I love me a hero that saves people, and she saved people with kind of stretchy energy powers, which was neat.
Said it before, I'll say it again. Fighting with an objective, way better than fighting for fighting's sake.
Yep. Don't just hit a guy with a sink because you can. Hit it with a purpose.
Yeah. And the last big fight sequence with all of the like distraction of the damage control folks, and then the showdown in the courtyard with like the objective is not to win the fight. The objective is to stall and keep Kamran from overloading too much, keep the crowd from getting damaged. That all feels like, that's a much more interesting fight than, just a slugfest would be.
Yeah, agreed. Also, I will say this, though. One issue, this is not like an issue that's like going to take away from the episode, just something that really kind of called out to me is like, I mean, I understand the line that they have and the logic of like, well, the school's deserted on a Saturday and they need kind of essentially a battleground or a place to lay low. And I understand that, but it really feels like a budget thing to me. It really comes across like, yeah, we have a school set. We don't really have like a, we don't. I don't know. Maybe it's either that or it's like, okay, we wanted to play the teen hero thing, and the teen hero thing, but the problem is we weren't in New Jersey for a third of our story, so I don't think the school has been a regular location enough to justify ending there. Did you have that at all, or is it like the school like just kind of call out to you like, yeah, we're in the school for reasons?
I feel like it kind of was a tie back to the beginning a little bit, but. Yeah, I mean, we hadn't been there in a few episodes, so that's that. I get that it would be a little bit jarring, certainly.
Okay, let's see. So again we have our objective at play here. It's a little Home Alone-esque, let's be honest, in terms of like, okay, we're just gonna throw a bunch of softballs at him, literally, and everything. I do love. So Tiki and I, we are huge. We basically kind of friend to a friend. One of the actors on the show, the young man who plays Amir, Sagar Sheikh, or Sagar Sheikh. And he plays again. He plays Amir, and we've been geeking out whenever he shows up and he gets stuff to do. So it cracked me up endlessly that Amir popped up during the plan stage in a way that our guy usually plays comedy. So him to like pop it up and get a little bit of comedy like that. It's like, and that's where we come in. Like, Amir, what are you doing here? It's like, Sagar, you popped into the big scene.
Yeah, I love that they truly have just kind of like taken what works really well about his comedic delivery in those sketches that we love so much, and like really translated it onto this with his comedic timing. They did a fantastic job with all of that.
It's good to know the casting people like. I'd love to think they watch those Just Giglet videos, but I don't know.
They must have. They must have.
I mean, with an audition, you think I don't know exactly. Like he probably just walked in and did the reading, but I'm just saying if he could send in clips, I imagine he'd send in a reel. Or
Right.
something.
I mean, I'm sure they're on his resume at the very least,
like a reel or something, you know.
Anyway,
so let's see. So as I mentioned, I'm geeking out over like how we kind of repurpose tech and everything during the scene with the damage control kind of agents that are coming in. The top of it's on serious though. We had some really powerful, evocative imagery in our climax. I think spoke volumes in a really important way. Like we had Miss Marvel standing up for the Muslim community and for the southeastern community, and basically, you have like a minority with guns pointed at it, and you have like a hero kind of coming to the rescue here and kind of standing between it. And I don't know, it's like all of this over like what an entity might do or they fear the entity might do. So all this, again, I think, again, it kind of plays to, again, just given the mutants of it all, this played to the themes of the X-Men, kind of the relevant themes at play here, and kind of playing it to the damage control aspect that we had Fleur with at the top that we really brought to a whole here. I just wish we were able to thread through those couple episodes, but it probably would have been a possibility. Just the Islamophobia that we were kind of paraboling here and there,
Yeah.
So I think all of that was nicely done.
Yeah. I will say the moment with all of the cops running in front and making a line in front of the the damage control guys, I was like, nah, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, Wasn't it just like, was it a whole line or was it just two cops? Because I saw two cops in front. That I could buy too. I could buy two cops.
Yeah, I could buy two cops, but
I don't know if it was like a whole line though. If it's a whole line, then maybe, probably not. It's the deflate the hopeful balloon. Like,
well, like it left my mind right away because then they started just like walking past them and they didn't do anything, and I was
that's
like,
kind of a balance.
Right,
even if it was a full line, like we're gonna make the gesture, but we like jobs. So let's see. Okay, so of course, Cleary just kind of calling her out like she's in trouble. Ooh, Agent Deaver's in trouble with the boss. Let's see. I gotta tell you though, when Kamala was talking down Kamran, she had a really good line that I think kind of summed up kind of like the generational story you were referring to earlier, Gulliver's. The whole fact that it essentially boils down to a mother sacrificing herself to protect her children, which is fundamentally what we saw during the big train scene.
Yeah,
episode 5, and then of course that led to the namesake of the episode. There is no normal, and this line really struck a chord with me. The whole, you do basically we do with what we've been given. Basically we're rolling with the punches. Like we didn't really ask for all of this, and just bad stuff's going to happen. We just have to roll with it.
Yep.
So, I guess rounding things out a little bit here. So after all the actions done, the day is saved. I love how the community rallies against her and like they're calling out like, "Hey, she saved us" and everything. And obviously, as Tiki said earlier, kind of the Sam Raimi of it all.
Yeah.
You mess with Miss Marvel, you mess with New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's our light bright girl.
Yeah. Best heroes in town. Miss Marvel said so.
Yep. So anyway, so we go the scene on the rooftop with Abu and Kamala was really nice.
Yeah.
Where we kind of review. I'm going.
I was just gonna say he doesn't say it quite like that in the comics, but he does say something very similar. He says that Kamala means like perfect or miracle, in some way, but he doesn't translate it as Marvel in the comics. If I
Yeah, like in
remember
another
right.
language, it's closer to Marvel, and that's how we get the whole Miss
Yep.
Marvel namesake. Which I mean, I gotta admit, the way that we have it now, I do like it. We have like I don't think it's that much of a leap. Like, okay, we have
No, not
Marvel
at all.
worked in there, and it's,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I was worried, like, I think the obvious thing was like, when is she just going to make the connect? I want to name myself after my hero. Where we kind of found a way of
Yep.
like doing it without necessarily just drawing the direct line. It kind of adds like again, it basically plays into kind of the theme of the heritage and everything that we've been kind of laying out for the whole season with the approach that we've taken. So I don't know, small world, but it works. And lastly. Let's see. So, also, we got our lamppost money shot, which apparently it's from the books, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, which it looks a great shot too. It looks great. And then we have let's see. Basically, lastly, the thing to speculate on our post credit scene.
Mm-hmm.
So Carol Danvers shows up. Doesn't quite. It's almost like the Amanda show. She shows up, but she doesn't get to,
right.
she doesn't get to interact with the big cheese. It's like there's Penelope Taint, but Amanda is a no show because the not nine should the twain meet.
And I got to be honest with you guys. For me personally, I thought she showed more personality just in like her facial expressions to the, to what was going on than we've pretty much ever seen from her in the rest of the MCU.
Well, again, when she shows up during the fight in Endgame, she had personality. She was there.
I guess, but I don't know. I just like it was cool to actually see her flustered by something, is what I'm trying to say,
Sure. Well, you're right. Point being,
Yeah.
anything we do with her is better than kind of what we just had like with her. It's like, I'm just here.
Yeah.
I'm in a Marvel mood.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, post the Miss Marvel era of Captain Marvel, she has been a fairly like stoic personality, just as she sort of like matured and like became more of like a soldier in some ways.
Yeah, it's basically Captain America with all the
Yeah.
stoicism, but none of the charm. That's kind of what it's been. It's like, hey, let's take it all like the regal, all the wonderful like homespun charm. I could do this all day and just have it. Yeah, I can do this all day. I'm gonna strike a pose. Yeah. But no. This does seem to be again. I'm really hopeful that her supporting characters are already. They seem to be the biggest draw for her movie, and I think they're going to bring her out of her shell and give her. Yeah, I'm hoping it's going to be kind of like a Doctor Strange thing, Gulliver, where it's like the more not that Doctor Strange had like a rough start or anything like she did, but I think ultimately that the more time we spend with the character, the more they kind of like become better and better, and people love them and love them. Like Doctor Strange, every appearance he got increasingly better.
Yep, and the more that you kind of understand who they are as a person, the more that they have the opportunity to grow as well.
So I have a theory how the link up's going to go here for the Marvels. Okay. So I could be wrong here because sometimes, I mean, in the past, I think now they're trying to change this, but in the past, the MCU post-credit scenes, well, basically they do fit in the universe. They do fit like in the movies in the universe in between the cuts of things, but you kind of have to do some finagling to really say, okay, well, you have like the consultant short film to explain exactly what happened there. And I mean, I'm sure Loki was influencing Dr. Selvig, and that's why he kept an eye on the situation. But if you really want to measure him up like beat for beat, like doesn't necessarily fit. Anyway, that's what was the past. But I'm imagining this is actually a scene kind of like the latter part of the MCU. We're like, okay, this is like literally a scene from Captain America: Civil War. We're like during the Ant-Man post-credit scene. Where in this case, it's like, hey, end of Act 1 of the Marvels is going to be Carol Danvers just suddenly being summoned and swapped out with this little with the bangle. Like suddenly she's in New Jersey and Kamala is hanging out with Monica Rambeau or something. Like in space during an adventure. Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
That's my theory. I think it's going to
be Nick Fury or something.
Yeah. Or something. Yeah. Like for all we know,
maybe Cole will be there and everybody will just, lose their absolute minds.
Well, it makes sense though, actually. If Carol Danvers, she ends up in New Jersey with this switch and she calls her friend's daughter, Monica Rambeau, who is kind of local. She's close to New Jersey based on the end of WandaVision. So it's within she might actually be in space now, given the end of WandaVision, but I'm just speculating here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It'd be interesting. Yeah, I really have no idea where they're going to go with the Marvels, and I'm so delighted to find out what it is.
Yeah, I
But
mean, again, I think ultimately what I want from the Marvels, and I think a lot of people might want, is basically Carol Danvers getting a little more in touch with her humanity, but as an icon instead of like Carol Danvers is important. Like, no, Captain Marvel is kind of who we're buying the ticket for right now. I mean, we want to see her kind of like get in touch. We want to see the human side represented more than just like backstory. We want to see her just kind of do stuff, and yeah.
And with the movie too, like her, I don't want to spend too long on it, but
Sure.
like the beginning of Captain Marvel's kind of established that she's sort of been, browbeaten into behaving this certain way and becoming this, perfect Kree operative soldier. And like, even then past that, she was also a soldier on Earth before that. So the movie is sort of her coming out of her shell a little bit towards the end, and then, trying to figure out like, okay, well, what do I do from here? How do I figure out who me is? So I think there is a big opportunity there, but I think that's kind of an underlying theme of that film.
I mean, this is going to be a huge overshoot of what I think they're going to be able to accomplish. But I mean,
Yeah.
who knows? I'm just going to give you a comparison. I mean, not that this had necessarily was the rockier journey between the two, but in terms of my enjoyment, another Captain name, I love Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I mean, that was one that really got into kind of like the headspace of Cap now in a whole new situation, and this might be the way to do that with her.
Yep. And Miss Marvel would be such a good like, counteraction to that, because she's such a Captain Marvel fangirl, and like she will, if it ever comes up the question of Carol, I'll just be like, why are you a fan of me? And she starts listing off all these things. I think Carol might find some aspects of herself that she didn't expect to find in that moment.
And it would be a heck of a way of just kind of like explaining to the kids out there, hey, why should we like this Captain Marvel character when maybe her first movie didn't quite do it for us? Well, here's why.
Yeah,
this character is going to kind of usher you into that mindset, hopefully in a good way.
Yeah.
All right, and I guess that I think that'll about do it for us. I mean, it sounds like on the whole, I think we like the finale a little bit more. I think more cohesively than perhaps some of the others, and we should probably thank the folks who tuned in.
Yeah, so big thanks to Z and K channel, LOTRER fan, and also Chaos Cat for joining us. Really appreciate y'all. And guys, I'm sorry I had to like leave in the middle of that. I just it's been a week, so thank you for thank you for dealing with that. Anyways, that'll do it for us this week as we holster our remotes till the next installment. Calls for the draw. Mano y mano. Just Plus and Us. A wild Siger appears.